So we crossed that over. All right. So now we're going to go into a little bit of the darkness. So what I'm going to touch on, unless you want to bring to my attention anything that I'm leaving out, because I'm just going off of our relationship or what I know about your history, is maybe like identity crisis, ego, and depression. So maybe you could tell me some stories, some short stories of those, and tell me like how it became a low, and explain what it was like, how depression was with you, how I shared when the darkness was with me, being I felt like I was locked in a million chains and no one could lock me out of bed, and it was actually trying to get out, it was muscles, and no matter how bad I wanted to move, I couldn't do it. It felt like there was somebody like locking me down, where you had a similar experience, but it was different.
So one of the stories that pops out right as you're asking that question is it was actually during my senior year, which was a year after I'd had my first really bad episode, and I was starting to spiral again.
Wait, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off because I think we missed the point since we did a little pre-prep interview. Is your first depression you brought to my attention, that you didn't share with me at the time, was your first breakup with your girlfriend. Was one girl your junior year? Was the first time it
Oh,
really
my
rattled you?
senior year of high school.
Oh, that was high school. Oh, I thought
That
that
was
was.
actually my sophomore year of high school.
Wow. Wow. And I was working with you then. Okay. Do you want to touch on that? Because it might be able to help somebody that thinks that, it's never going to heal the heart and never going to come back, and how you got over it, or try to like sum it up kind of short and all like how it worked out. And then you got over it, and you end up finding a bunch of different girls, and moved on as a little bit of a player and had a better experience. But at that time, if I went and knew about it and talked to you, you would have probably just been like, "Shut up, Paolo. You don't know. It's never the pain's never going to stop," and cry on my shoulder. And but me being older would say it happens to the best of us. We all get our hearts broken at some point, and we learn and we move on. So.
I definitely always held it inside and wanted to process those emotions myself, which is not the healthiest thing to do, as I came to realize later on. But anyway, sophomore year of high school, it's definitely the first girl that I ever truly loved. Obviously, you have your like little kindergarten crush, and I'll always remember that fondly, even if it didn't come through. But what happened in sophomore year was I definitely felt like a connection with this girl. Like my heart really, really felt that connection. Really, whenever I talked to her, as people say, like butterflies, I just felt like a really strong feeling here of, wow, this person's amazing. They're incredible. I want to spend all my time with them. Those sorts of nice feelings. And then she told me that she didn't want to be with me. She wanted to be with someone else. And I remember this vividly. It just broke me. I felt my heart just sink all the way down, and it was very crushing. And uh, I guess you could call that depression. I mean, I feel like so many things are they happen at the same time. Where they say like heartbreak, is heartbreak really different from depression? I feel like they can be sort of one and the same. And that was definitely really tough. And I remember sitting in my car looking at that text message, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I feel awful right now. I just feel like my heart's been torn into a million pieces. So I mean, I just remember having to just go on with the day and just sort of sitting with that. And I sat with it for a few weeks, and thankfully I talked to some other people about it who knew about the situation. And I realized that it was going to get better, and that there are other girls out there, but that took a long time to get over. But I feel like I had the right mindset going through that.
Right. My advice to the kids, or like when I say kids, is the like you. If I would have known about that, it's like whatever words I'm going to say is not going to take away the pain. And but just from experience, that time heals most wounds, not all wounds, most wounds. And that's like what you'll see, and you can pass down to your children, the kids you work with, and through this campaign, especially when it comes into that. And I think we're almost programmed too, because even if you watch movies, it's always the woman is going through a bad breakup and she's eating a gallon of ice cream. They don't realize that us as men, even though if we're supposed to be alpha and we're supposed to be tough, when we fall in love or we get that puppy crush or whatever we want to label we want to put on it, we have our emotions, and we might not show it out in public because men are not supposed to cry. Men are not supposed to have feelings, but we know that that's healthy. And so that's it's good things for women to know that, hey, listen, when that you're not alone. So you got through that heartbreak. How long did it take you to get through it? And do you know what helped you get through that heartbreak?
I had a
Okay.
really good support system around me at that time. When I was hanging out with that girl, I was close with a bunch of other people, so it hurt. But because I had so many other people around me that made me feel good, and it really kept. Although the feeling was there because I had so many things going on around me, uh, it couldn't last for very long.
I would think that, what do you about this? Do you like this idea of to maybe give out to the public as a coping skill is stay busy and try not to let your brain focus on that person's image or anything else. So stay as active as you can. If I was dating Julie, and I know she hangs out at this one pool hall or wherever, this one sporting event, and I know she's there every day at 4 o'clock. I know not to go to that area because I don't want to come in contact. I need to have some space, and do my own things. So I would try to stay as busy with other activities to distract my mind from obsessing on the relationship. Do you agree with that? Would be a good tool?
Definitely keep yourself busy, and it really gives you perspective. If you isolate, you're gonna go down a deep, dark rabbit hole of your own mind and how sad you are, instead of keeping yourself busy and putting real perspective on. There's so many other things in life for you to focus on and get joy from.
Oh, that's just a common story that I think that some people can relate to and hopefully learn from this episode is, some coping skills to get through. And obviously, what we're out here putting this episode in, if we're not saying this is the answer, these are band-aids to help you get through the day and relieve the pain. So if it is a darker situation, everyone affiliated with this campaign would, again, I can't stress enough to seek help, ask for help from somebody that is, I like to say that somebody that's not connected. You could start with somebody that's your family to get to the right direction, and then go to a professional so it's a true safe spot. And watch my and the reason why I say that is if you watch the tips that I have on picking a psychiatrist and picking a psychologist and things, you'll learn the reason why I say that. Not to discredit any of family members or friends that might give you advice. It's just a safer setting, and it helps with this family problems because what you're doing sometimes, if you're have nowhere else to go, my doc, like when I've had people reach out to me for suicide, to talk about suicide, and my first reaction was, I'm not qualified, I don't want to say the wrong thing and be sued or hurt the person in a worse situation. And Dr. Bourne told me, he said, that's actually not correct. It's not that you give so much advice, but if someone reaches out for help as a good human being and compassionate, you could listen to them because they're reaching out to you for a reason. And then, of course, refer them to a proper source. Brandon, we're going to go to your junior year in high school. No, college, right? Is when did you hit your first? I would say, and describe what it is. Is would you say it was depression? Was that the term when you didn't really, no one knew. I didn't know that you were in a bad place. I thought you were going to the gym every day. You were having a blast at school. I know you were dating a bunch of girls. You were in your fraternity, and everything seemed well in Brandon's world for me as an outsider. And we were pretty tight, just like all my other kids. But I always had you as a little bit of a special cat in my life.
So yeah, that was my junior year.
Okay. And maybe, give us a short story of what happened. So maybe somebody, again, our goal is to have somebody see some, might not be the same story, but they can relate to it. And then, so explain transparency, to be completely transparent of the story, and then how, what it was, some things that maybe you might do over again, or what worked out for you.
So what happened was going into from my sophomore into my junior year, I was originally a finance major, and I really thought like that was like sort of my identity. Like I'm gonna be a finance guy. I'm gonna go on Wall Street. I'm gonna be a big shot basically. Uh, so when I had to change my major, what that was really a blow to my ego and really my path. What happened was in my freshman year, I didn't do well in a class, and then my sophomore year, I also didn't do well, and that made me have to change majors. So junior year, I was trying to get back into the school by really doing my own way, even though I technically was another major, a criminology major. I was still trying to get back onto critical tracking, which means to graduate with the other degree. So I was really trying to, not necessarily, I would say I was trying to beat the system in my own way, even though I was a different student. I was still going to take those other classes because they don't stop you from taking those classes, like the prerequisite classes, to get in, to get back on track. And that was really my goal. And then my junior year, it was actually the first time I was living off campus, and that was the first time that I was on my own, pretty socially isolated, and I had to really take care of myself, and I was away from everyone.
So was that a good move in hindsight to move off campus, or were you in a safer setting being on campus?
I was definitely in a safer setting, being closer to campus. I could have moved off campus, but if I could do it over again, I would live with more people in a house because my roommate, God bless him, he is like a really nice kid and really open, really fun. But his major made it so that he was hardly home, and I guess it was hard for him to recognize what was going on with me. Uh, Even when I feel the heavier symptoms started to set in, and my behavior definitely changed a lot. When I was just sleeping all the time, I wasn't leaving my room. Uh, I don't know if he didn't notice what was going on because he was so busy, or if he did and didn't know how to approach me. Because once I finally did talk to him about it, he told me that he had dealt with some issues in high school, so he completely understood. But I'm getting sort of ahead of myself. What happened was I was trying to switch back into the finance major, and I could, for the life of me, not study for this one class, which was financial accounting. I had once again fallen back into my old habit of, oh, I'm so smart, I can get away with just doing the bare minimum and I'll be fine. And that was not the case with this class. And it kept getting worse and worse as I continually kept trying to do the same thing over and over again and not succeeding. So that really messed with my whole identity of I'm a finance guy, I'm smart, I can do anything. And really started getting me in this downward spiral of, if I'm not a finance guy and I don't want to be in criminology, I don't want to be a cop, who am I? And I just started watching I started watching a bunch of TV. I've always been into TV, but I started doing that more and more and avoiding going out, avoiding talking to my friends, avoiding talking to my family, avoiding eating healthily. Started eating a lot of comfort foods. Started spending more and more time in bed. Uh, I I had joined uh, a I had joined a on campus job, and I had to tell them that I could no longer do it. I felt overwhelmed. I'm dealing with personal issues, uh, and I just kept feeling more and more like a fraud. And it was really disheartening, and I felt like I just kept having all this negative self talk, and I didn't realize what was going on at all. I just the negative behaviors kept piling on, sleeping more, eating worse, avoiding more and more people, and that's when I felt like the darkness was really starting to creep in, and the the fact that I was off campus made it easier for me to self isolate and easier for me to go into that place, and it definitely started to feel like Groundhog's Day, and I would sleep for hours on end. Sometimes I would watch TV until like 6 a.m. in the morning, from like 11 until 6, and then sleep until like 7 p.m. the next day, and that would be uh, my day, and that's what I would do for a long time.
You're self-medicating and all to help you, because usually, in my experience, is like when you're at that point, I could identify with it. Is when you sleep. That's the one time. Like depression is. I really don't. For me, it's emotional pain. So the sleep. One don't. When we put your son under operation, they put you under anesthesia so you don't feel the pain. Whereas sleep, the same thing as I think, and I'm going to ask this question again to our specialists, our guests coming on, is that with the correlation of sleeping and just going and wanting that sleep, or is it to burn the day by faster so the next day hopefully will have a better result, or was it just strictly to numb, to get numb, not feel that? Did you have to self-medicate to sleep those hours, or was it just emotionally it was so draining that puts you to sleep? Like I took Benadryl to try to help me go to sleep, just so I didn't feel so dark and whatever, and help me go to sleep because I'd sleep insomnia issues.
The way that I felt is I was so drained from the thought of things that I had to do, that sleep was a way for me to avoid everything, and it was where I didn't feel pain. I injured my back when I was 15, 16, and I had rehabbed it leading into junior year, and I had felt great, but I had stopped going to the gym, and that pain started to come back, and it started getting worse and worse as I was spending more and more time in bed. So not only was sleeping a way for me to get away from the emotional pain, it was a way for me to get away from the physical pain. Because as soon as I got out of bed and I started walking, I could really feel how bad my hip and back were. Like, I don't know if you know what I mean when I say ground power. I could feel that my leg, I couldn't feel, uh, like my foot started, the arch started to collapse. So I could feel my foot starting to become like a club foot. And the more and more that kept happening, the more and more I kept thinking about it. And that made me also put myself down as just like you're a freak. You like, if you feel this way, like you're never gonna get better. And it was just like very self-defeating behaviors, because the only way to get better obviously is to go to the gym and work through it, which I had experienced before and had solved the issue. So I knew the issue was solvable. but my mind was telling me that it really wasn't.
You were just keeping it all inside, right?
I
It was
was completely
just
keeping it all inside, and like talking to my family, which normally was like a great joy to me. I love my family. It was uh, it was really a drag. I felt like I just wanted to be left alone. Um,
I don't want any advice. You don't know what
I
I'm
don't want any
feeling.
advice. I just want to isolate. I just want to do what I want to do and screw everything else because life is already so hard just being me. That's how I really felt.
Right. And then how long did this period go
This
until you
was this is about like 6 months. It went from
wow. Did you
fall.
see it? Did you see it go? Like, all right, it was getting worse and worse, or it was just staying consistently pain?
I think it sort of was getting. I don't know. It sort of went in peaks and valleys. Looking back, I can't really uh, pinpoint like the ups and
Okay.
downs, but I definitely just felt. I just felt like I was in a pit. Like I said, it was Groundhog's Day. Like every day I woke up, I hated being myself, and I didn't want to wake up. I wanted to go back into my dream world where I didn't have any of those problems. I could walk properly, and I didn't have to live the life that I had created for myself, which honestly felt like a personal hell.
So the question I was about to ask Brandon was, if you give me an example of a situation of like when we know he's now at this point, he's sharing his story of depression and what was involving it, and he doesn't have a clue what's causing it right now. But his, I guess, his definition of what it felt like, or like how he tried to break the cycle and it worked or didn't work. So maybe you could think of a story that people could relate to.
I think the one story that jumps out at me is there is one of my friends that he was a senior and I was a junior, so I knew he was leaving soon. We were really close, so I guess I sort of had a good day where I felt proactive and making plans, and I made a plan to hang out with him either later that day or later that week. And then when the time came around to actually go hang out with him, I just came back from dinner, and I noticed that the feeling that I had of wanting to cancel our plans and just go back into my room and get into bed and just wallow in self pity again. And it literally felt like a magnet pulling me back. Like I had already walked out my door and down the hallway, and it made that feeling made me turn around and question what I was doing, and made me want to go back into my apartment. And it made me feel very socially anxious, and it made me from what I remember, it just felt like this dark energy that was in my mind telling me, no, don't go back into the room.
I mean, it's sad because as we know that this isn't an isolated incident. This happens to me. This happens to you. And it's a national health crisis. And even now with the pandemic and research we've done, it's even growing with the stories. But you even got to the point, so you tried to be proactive on your own, and you got dressed, you showered, you got ready to go. You even made it out of the door, which was better than I did. It's like I couldn't even get out of bed. And I and again, I'm not trying to like make excuses. Oh, well, mine is disease related, because it is. I believe all these labels are a disease. Is really no, the symptoms might be different than something that people aren't scared to talk about and are sad, like cancer or other terminal illnesses. But these things are important to be talked about, and you sharing, and again, for people to identify with that. So, what did you turn around and go to the party, or did you go back to your room and disengage because you thought that was the safe place for you and that was the most comfortable spot. That was your self medication.
I thankfully fought against that feeling to go back, and I went to go hang out with him. And while I was there, I realized that I was having all these racing thoughts of really negative self talk, and just like, oh, he doesn't know what's going on with me, like, and like it was so strange to like be having like a normal conversation and to have all these racing thoughts, and I kept having this feeling of wanting to leave early because I felt so anxious and I felt so down on myself.
Wow, wow, wow. So then, all right, so you finished that night, which did you feel better that you pushed through that pain and you got out of the room the next day, or did that not make a difference in your mood and stuff? Did you give yourself a pat on the back? You know, like sometimes, like if I use again myself as an example, is that my goal might be simply to take a shower that day, you know, and to somebody said, well, how can you not take a shower? And I'm like, it hurts to brush my teeth when I'm that depressed. And no one can relate to that. Or I should say that some people can, but nobody that I talk to can relate to that. But you know, you really put your courage together and you didn't turn around and give in to the illness. You fought back and you went through it. I don't know if you did it subconsciously or you had a plan behind it, but did that help by pushing yourself to that point? To
Uh,
like,
I think that was some of the first steps that, like I had said before, it was like one of the first steps I took to recovery, where it felt good to go out and socialize and not be alone.
so I'd like to tie that in somewhere along this conversation is like, I think that's the thing is that, all right, so you did that one step, and this is one question that I'm trying to find the answers to through all my research, speaking to specialists, is what is the problem? Like we will try so many things to we'll eat right, we'll try to do so many things to fix the problems, take the medicine, but we won't go and ask for help at some point. And I don't know if that's ego or what it is. So that's what our campaign's about is, you know, and then you deal with the repercussions is there's no guarantee is that if I reach for a social worker or a therapist that you might have to go through 5 or 6 to find the right one that connects with you, you know. So that's another thing I was thinking. So um so you went back, just staying along this storyline because I think it's very important and it's an interesting subject that people could relate to. So you got back and had the rest of the now. Were you able to go back to class in this, or were you still in that downward cycle? Is this when you took a leave of absence of school and you start getting suicidal thoughts?
I believe this was during spring when I did finally withdraw from the university to focus on my mental health.
Well,
Uh,
can you explain your definition of the suicidal thoughts, or do you remember everything started escalating? Like with me, I know when I get a seizure, it starts with a ringing in the ears, and I'll get cramping, and then I'll get a seizure. It's usually I could feel it coming on to a point, or sometimes I can't. I don't know what it's like to have that. My suicidal thoughts were fear of the what's coming in the future. But your is a different story.
so I experienced what when I at the time uh, I read was called ego death, which was a complete loss of a sense of self. And at that time, uh, my thoughts were just like, if you have no identity, you don't know who you are. Why should you why should you live? Um, I had literally the thoughts kill yourself come through my mind many times. There is no real progression that I can really remember. It was sort of like going from self isolation and negative bad habits with part of it of procrastinating was I vividly remember I would I would like have the thoughts in my head where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go study tonight, and then when the time came to go study either that night or whatever, I would just smoke smoke marijuana and watch TV because that felt good in the moment. But I can even recall at the time being like, oh man, like this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel right. I know I should be doing something else. And, but I'm just going to continue procrastinating because this is just what I want to do right now. And, I don't really care, even though I know I did care. And I think marijuana definitely played a role in that downward spiral where marijuana, especially for me personally, although it has been used as a medicine before, and I've had some very good feel good states using it and can be used as a medicine, uh, it makes me okay with what is and what's going on and allows you to relax. But at the same time, when you really shouldn't be relaxing, when I should be studying, it really made the self defeating behaviors uh, cycle even faster. So it made the spiral go down much further. So it also makes you sort of paranoid. So it made me have all these thoughts about my life. It made me really self reflective. And although that can be therapeutic, when you're really negative and you have, like myself, a genetic predisposition to mental illness, uh, with no checks and balances in place, can really make you spiral down in your head.
Well, I didn't
And
want to get too much into the medication and different topics because I was going to save that for another segment. But as we know, and that each medication, whether it's marijuana right now has helps with seizures, has helps with kids with autism, or the CBD, it affects everybody different. So I think that's an important message, and us being responsible is that's why it's so important to if you are going to try these things and you heard good and you did some research, or maybe a friend said something, bring it into a quality physician to so they can monitor you and say like I told you, I like with marijuana, I tried to do it for the pain because I heard so many of the athletes are helping with like me and all my pain. But it gives me the munchies and makes me paranoid too. Where I have another friend that it works as the best anxiety medication that's non-addictive, and so that's a different debate for a different time. But I wanted to go on to because this was when I was having my suicidal thoughts and I had to go cold turkey and face all my demons head on with my doctor's care. I was on my opiates that I shared with you, enough to kill an elephant. And I was on it for 2 years. And when I decided to take on this campaign, I wanted to be, I didn't want to be a victim and I didn't want to be a martyr, but I know I had to be responsible and kind of like not be a hypocrite. So I had to make a choice and to take this pain. So I stopped the medication. And when I stopped the medication, the good thing about for me, where you might have a totally different experience with an opiate, is not only does it kill the physical pain or help you mask that, it also does the emotional pain. And that's what made me start to, that I felt like, all right, you are an addict now. You're abusing it. It says take two, but you want four. So maybe two's helping physical pain, but you want to take another two because that's going to help the emotional pain between the ears, and then the depression and help you sleep and do all that stuff. And I think that's not talked about enough. And I think that's where a lot of those controlled substances will catch us. And then for this opiate epidemic and then all the people dying dying off. So there's a happy medium between how we could use it. But when I went off it, I think we were sharing. We were in talks, and I was telling you when I was about to, and I called it dancing with the devil when I detoxed, and I just went cold turkey, and it was, I said, you have no idea the hell that I'm in for, like, it was like 10 days. I don't remember the story verbatim, but I think we were speaking quite often. You were checking in on me. And, what I was using as a coping mechanism was that, because when you come off that, it masks the pain. But when you're off those medications, is that all the darkness and depression and the serotonin levels in the brain will accelerate. So the worst thing I could have done was watch a depressing movie or read a book like you. What was the name of the book you read? Ego?
It wasn't a book that I read. It was something that I was researching. Uh, Actually, after I saw a psychologist, so that's what gave me the context of what I really felt was that I. It's called ego death, which is a loss of an identity.
Right. So again, I'm not a professional. You were working with a psychologist, but this is my personal feeling where I can say this is what I suggest. But again, a professional that's went to school for many years, has done many studies, would tell you this and that, is that I would be concerned telling you, if I would have known you were going through that time, I would have said, okay, let's do that if this is what you want to do, because I believe in research and advocating for yourself. And especially since you're so well read, and like even stuff that I have problems with now that I'm going blind in my right eye, I ask you to help me out once in a while with research and stuff that could do without pushing you over the edge. Is that I might have said, don't do that because that might trigger, a suicidal thought or make you go that way. It's like, again, surround yourself with nothing but positive energy. Try to, like, do stuff like, I know you love golf, do something right there. That's your medication. So my question, I'll try to make it simpler, is that is I don't think when you're in a dark state and you're not feeling well and you're dark, depressed, mood, whatever, anxiety, whatever that is the time when you really have to, when you look at anything that's depressing or listen to anything that's dark or that feeds those feelings and builds those emotions in our chemistry in our brain. Even though it might be learning, you got to do that when you're more at a balance level. Like, I know with the brain scans that they were doing on my brain, they said you have to be off all medications for us to get the actual uh, scan. You can't be on medication because that'll affect the test. So I think our mood, if you were, because you were in a bad place, so it's like almost curiosity killed the cat, right? So you want to have the answers. You're a fighter, and you want to work. So you want to get the answers, but maybe that was not right the right time, because that planted subliminally in the back of the brain a suicidal thought and strategy behind it. And I'm just shooting, just me and you, just talking as friends. And that could be something really a professional would have to sit into it. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it. Do you agree with that?
So it's interesting that you say it because I can remember exactly how I felt at that time. Is that I finally stopped being. I totally agree with what you're saying, that it's not a good idea, and the psychologist that I talked to said the same thing. I think it was actually right before I saw the psychologist that I was looking it up, because I felt so low. Like my base level was, like, I felt like I was in such a deep dark pit that I think I simply wanted to get context of what was happening to myself. And I definitely agree that a lot of people, or most people, should not research their own condition, because they will attach themselves to certain things sort of like
Or
a
maybe we have to rephrase that is then we ask the questions from the professional is that because knowledge is never something I think we should shy away from and advocating for ourselves. So again, I'm just speaking to you and as a colleague right now and somebody that shares a similar experience is that maybe then we do our checks and balances is there's nothing wrong with you reading and learning more about it is. It's just like me, I'm trying to learn about new techniques, hyperbaric chamber and oxygen. And I stay away from the what the ending is. I don't read the final chapter. So maybe like you said, the doctor said, don't research this. And you did anyway
uh,
because you're being proactive.
from what I remember was the chronological order was I had finally started to accept that something was wrong with me, and I had reached out to my family who said, "Okay, you should go see a psychologist." And I started to take those steps to I finally made an appointment, and making that appointment was one of the hardest things that I can remember. Like it felt like it was one of the hardest things to do was simply to make that call to say that something's wrong with me. I need to go get help. I need to go talk to someone.
Stop there. That's a perfect segment because I think if my instincts are right, my spidey senses, a lot of those people that are dealing with this crisis, mental health, physical pain, emotional, I go through the list, are come to that same thing as the hardest thing. So what then? Now you're fighting Mike Tyson pretty much in the ring, and you don't want to get in the ring with Mike Tyson, but you did it. So what was the push? Was what was the thing that maybe that you could share to give one example, two examples to somebody that you don't know that helped you get that help that I don't have the answers for, because if they don't want help and they just go through the motions. We heard that one story about a woman that I don't need to go through it. She went through, and because the parents forced her to, but she never really opened up and was truthful and committed suicide. And the doctor had no idea. So you can only get a gap out of it, which if you're completely transparent and honest. So you had to not only do something that you did not want to do, but then you also had to be brave enough and courage enough to get the most out of the session to get the man's advice and knowledge. And that's a lot to ask for somebody who's wounded. I mean, it's like me to ask you to run a 40 when you've got a blown Achilles out. And I really don't separate a difference in that. So what would you give advice to somebody peer your age or somebody younger generation? I don't even know if age matters because right.
I truly don't think that age matters. I think uh, what I hope people resonate with, what really happened with me is that I finally said to myself, I'm tired, I'm sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. And I started to say to myself, I'm going to fight. I'm going to figure out what I can do to become better. And until you really reach that point uh, and make that decision, you really are going to keep circling the mark, and that's truly what I would say is the secret sauce of all these things is that you have to search deep down in yourself to say, how can I get better? What am I going to do day in and day out to change myself because I do not like the version that I am right now. I want to be the best version of myself. And that's what really changed it for me. And some of those
And you're
things,
still working on it.
and I'm still working on it, and I'm working even harder now because I recognize the importance of that. And I've cycled since those original uh, instances, but each time I've come to a better understanding of how important it is to have that drive in yourself to go day in, moment by moment, to fight the battle. Because as anyone with depression will know, and my brother said this to me, and it really it struck a chord. He said, he asked his own therapist, he's like, am I always gonna have this? And he said, yeah, you're always going to have depression, and you are going to have to find the coping strategies and skills to fight it. And that was something that really that has stuck with me.
So I think, like, just from what I got from you, is almost like anything else. And again, it's weird. I guess why they say, when I interviewed Lee Steinberg, the super sports agent, and he had to overcome his alcohol addiction, and I just couldn't understand. A lot of the interview, that what it was, and it took him 9 years, and he was, the interview was good, but he said what saved him was like 12 steps. And then and in there, it was like, two of the things is, you really got to surrender your ego. And that is probably like one, besides making amends to people that you hurt, and because it's a disease and this and that. But I think it's people with mental health might not have addiction issues. I think a large percentage, I don't know what the statistics are, is they do self-medicate because it is such a painful disease to have. And so we'll do anything. We'll drink bleach if that makes us feel better. And that's one of the triggers with mental health and addiction. I think there's a definite correlation with it, and why people are homeless and so on and so on. But if you surrendered, so you basically had to surrender your ego, which is especially being Tauruses, right? That we both are, and we're both stubborn. We're like each other. I think being alpha men is a problem. Women have the same thing. You could be an alpha woman, and really trusting somebody and letting that go through is the only way you're really going to get, not a cure, but to lessen the pain and get the true treatment that's going to work for you.